Friends, very happy evening to all of you. I welcome you all to another important CP meeting discussing context, registration and benefits, including Aatmanirbhar Bharat package. We have with us our beloved speaker from Mumbai, C. Anand Bathiya. In fact, he was having a back-to-back session 2 hours before, and in a span of 1 to 2 minutes, he has joined us. That is the reason we said we will kind of delay it by 5 minutes. But since he joined and things are looking fine, we thought we'll immediately start the session. And there have been a lot of queries coming on, whether I should register in MSME, are there any advantages or any disadvantages are there which I should be careful. So probably that's a question which every client is asking, and professionals also we thought should know about things in deep. And the immediate question which many people ask is, if I register in MSME today, can I get a loan tomorrow, and whether I'll be getting the interest subvention benefit? Can a CA register for MSME? There are a lot of queries there. I think for traders, there is a restriction. So there are a lot of small queries. We thought if it can be structuredly placed through a CP meeting, it will be benefiting all the members. So I welcome C. Anand Bathiya for this program. And I also welcome C. Sundarajan, a regional council member, who is going to share his thoughts. One small request to all the participants for welcoming and comfort of the program. Please join through a laptop or desktop. Many a time there is a hiccup when you join through the mobile. Or if you are using mobile, please use headphones so that there is clarity. And if you are facing any audio or video issues, kindly disconnect and reconnect. Things will be working fine. So before I request Abhishek to give introduce the speaker, I request C. Sundarajan sir to speak few words and then take things.
Respected Chairman of SIRC of ICAI, Sri DG Jain sir. Respected Secretary of SIRC of ICAI, Sri Abhishek Murli sir. Respected Speaker of the Day, Sri Anand Bathiya sir from Mumbai. Respected members attending this program, Namaskaram. Let us understand the today's situation in two parts. One is health, another is economy. The health, as said by the Honorable Union Minister for Health, we should know how to live and overcome this situation by developing immunity within ourselves. Second thing is economically, let us learn from the experience of our predecessors that this type of disaster had occurred 100 years before, made us to overcome and live happily by developing a good human culture with dependency in nature. Why I'm saying is nature is the agricultural sector, as it contributes with the natural resources, our economy will develop automatically and will fulfill the utilization of human resources also. At this juncture, I would request our chairman to create a group for studying standards for agriculture income, both for accounting and audit. This does not mean we should ignore the developments in other technologies, but only to coexist. As our today's program emphasizes more on MSME, registration and benefits, including Aatmanirbhar Bharat package, Ministry led by Sri Nitin Gadkari for MSME had announced packages for this MSME size enterprises, simplification and registration process with a single application formed by online or offline facility. For a person having more than one industry, the details are available in the website of the ministry, supported by self-attested certificates with no registration fees are available. Benefits to say, loans without collateral security on patents and rights for industrial promotion, and concession on electricity, reimbursement of ISO certification charges, and more importantly, protection against delayed payments. Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi announcing the Aatmanirbhar package through Finance Minister Honorable Nirmala Sitharaman ji has waived for global tenders up to 200 crores, relief to contractual obligations, support to state governments with additional financial package by increasing borrowing limits, collateral-free automatic business loans, and reduction of TDS rates, etc. How we should act in difficult situation, as said by Saint Tiruvalluvar in Tamil. Vinay valiyum, than valiyum, matran valiyum, tunai valiyum, tukki chayal. Weighing judicially nature of task, strength of force, allies, and before launching any action is the meaning of that. The nature of task implies well-being of our country, strength to mean human resources, force is our negative thoughts and currently COVID. Allies and self to mean our own human fraternity with, as stipulated, as the scheme stipulates, self-confidence. I think it means that only, right? Aatmanirbhar Bharat, self-confidence. I hope the problem has been analyzed by the ministry and as well, and we as an institution have supported. With these few words, I leave the forum to the secretary and speaker to continue. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sundarajan sir, for giving a prelude for the program. I will also request that materials have not been put in the links, so sharing it after the program, we get email for us. Abhishek, over to you so we can introduce the speaker.
Thank you, Chairman. Very good morning to all the viewers who are there today. Good morning to our speaker, C. Anand Bathiya, our dynamic chairman, C. Dungachan Jain, and of course my fellow regional council colleague, C. A. Sundarajan, who gave a very nice opening address to set the tone. I have the privilege of introducing C. Anand Bathiya on this important topic, even though it's an uncommon topic that we normally cover at our CA Institute. Both chairman and I strongly felt, I think this has a lot of implications for our clients and maybe certain benefits, certain things that we can take advantage of while advising our clients. So I think Anand is going to give us good clarity on this. And also, Anand, I request you to touch upon one thing. Is a lot of chartered accountants have been asking if they can bring their firm under the MSME category and take advantage. So I request you to give us tips on that as well. So before Anand proceeds with this presentation, I will now briefly introduce our speaker. He's a fellow member of the ICAI and a qualified company secretary, Bachelor of Commerce and a Bachelor of Law as well. He has postgraduate diplomas in security laws from GLC and information systems audit from ICAI. He's a partner in the transaction consulting practice of his own firm and has the previous experience of working with many leading multinational accounting and consulting firms. He's engaged in advising leading companies in negotiating, structuring, and performing due diligence of many domestic and international M&A cases, and he's handled more than 200 M&A transactions in the last 15 years. He regularly advises private equity funds, venture capitalist funds, and family offices in formation, fund documentation, diligence, and investment transaction execution. He is involved in several IPOs, QIP, rights issue, and open offers as well, and is a member of the group committed by the Valuation Standard Board for drafting valuation standards by the MCA. He's a key author of a valuation standard on financial instruments. He's a managing committee member of the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society and a member of various committees of the ICAI, Chamber of Tax Consultants, WIRC, and other professional bodies as well. He's a regular speaker across various professional bodies, and he's been closely involved with various entrepreneurs in mentoring them and assisting them with new age businesses in the fintech space. He's an independent director of many listed companies as well. And it's only a brief profile about him. As Chairman rightly said, he's a very in-demand person. Literally 2 minutes before he joined this program, he was speaking somewhere else. He is kind enough to say that he will not cancel our program and he will join us to address our members despite his hectic schedule. Thank you so much, Anand, for taking time out of your schedule to join us despite this very, very hectic day that you're having.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek, very much for that kind introduction. And in fact, it is my pleasure, Abhishek, to be here and with you, BCG, Ramaswamy, and the entire team. Last year as well, I think we were in Chennai with BCG when we had the RRC at Tirupati, and it just brings back all the memories that we have had in Chennai. I would really like to resonate what Mr. Ramaswamy said. He first started with the coronavirus and the negativity that is there, and then he said this saintly proverb that just builds confidence to look at things differently. And that is what is needed amongst all of us, that we can look at it positively. So my today's experience of speaking at 2 hours before this session and now, I would say that before Corona I could never have done a session in Bombay and in 2 minutes jump to Chennai and do a session. It's just amazing the different things that technology has allowed us to do. I know few lawyers, Abhishek, in Bombay that earlier used to only operate in Bombay High Court. And now in a day, they are going to Chennai High Court, Delhi High Court, Supreme Court, everything online. So the way that we have been doing things will change. And there is a silver lining to this pandemic as well. And to the extent that we can see it and adopt, I think we'll emerge as winners out of this pandemic. And one of the important things is also to help our clients get through this particular situation or tide over this uncertainty, and which is where this session that BCG and yourself have set in place is maybe coming at the right time as well, wherein micro, small, and medium enterprises are expected to bear the brunt of this pandemic to the maximum. And in that situation, they should be aware of the various benefits that are available to them. We will have to guide and handhold them to pass through this situation. And also from our firm's perspective, whether we can take some of the benefits of the MSMEDA provisions is something that will be of much interest in today's situation that we all are in. I would, of course, expect a lot of practical questions that would be there in the minds of the participants, because this is perhaps my 10th session over the last 1 month on MSMEs, and I can expect the questions that can come. But what we would do is that we will try and have this initial talk session finished within the next 1 hour, 15 minutes or so, and then we'll keep the last buffer sort of half an hour to take the question and answer all of that in that sense, so that because quite a few of the questions may get addressed in this particular webinar as well. And if they're left unanswered, we'll certainly take it up in the last half an hour. So when BCG and myself were thinking on the topic, I think we thought context, scope, and benefits make sense, because we need to keep in mind the context and scope as well to understand and appreciate the benefits that are available and will be available. Let me start with laying the foundation and giving you some facts about MSMEs. And this is very important for us to appreciate the benefits if we understand the background of MSMEs. Friends, you would be happy to know that there are a staggering 6.3 crore MSME entities in India. Now, this is a large number, perhaps highest in the world in any country, where you have 630 lakh or 63 million MSMEs in one particular country. If I'm able to bifurcate this MSME into 3 categories, manufacturing, services, and trading, it's actually an equal distribution of about 2.1 crores in manufacturing, 2.1 crore in services, and 2.1 crore in trading. This is a number that is unprecedented, and there are triggers and reasons as to why India has so many MSMEs. The other important fact is that these 6.3 crore MSMEs create about 12 crore jobs. So on an average, one MSME is employing about 2 people. And again, in jobs, it's almost equal distribution between manufacturing, services, and trading. This one equation of creating 12 crore jobs after agriculture, the number 2 is MSME. And this is where, in the pandemic situation, where we have had triggers like reverse migration, we have had situations where there may be labor layoffs as well. I think protection of employment is the paramount importance that the top level of government is looking at. And agriculture has only a limited capability to absorb more people. And hence, this employment generation potential in the MSME is why we are seeing so much of focus in the last 6 months on MSMEs. The Aatmanirbhar Bharat package or the increase in the threshold, including the seminar that we are having today. This awareness is much more today because the focus at the top is on employment. Let me give you an example. There are certain countries who have their strength in capital, like the Western countries. They have a lot of capital and they can compete better based on their capital. There are some countries that can compete based on their technological skill set, like maybe the Far East countries or Japan or some of the other countries, may be technologically very strong. And maybe from an India perspective, our strength is the large workforce, the large trained manpower that we are gifted with. 135 billion people, if they are put to use properly, that is where the economy can function to its full potential. So we are naturally blessed with people talent and labor talent. And which is where, if we have to use that, that is where it will come up and give maximum results. We are capital starved, technology we are catching up, but in people, we are clearly right up there in terms of the number of people that we have. And these 3 are the factors of production, broadly, if one may look at. So if I have, let's say, 100 crore rupees as a country, I have a choice that can I put this 100 crore rupees into one steel plant, set up a state-of-the-art steel plant, 100 crore rupees. It will, in a way, generate maybe 100 employees. Typically, in a large plant, it's a 1 crore is to 1 kind of a ratio if you do a robotic state-of-the-art plant. I have a choice that can I not give this 100 crore to that one steel company, but I will give 10 crores to smaller units, ancillary units, support units, and then I can give 10 crores to 10 smaller units. Each of that unit will be able to create almost 500 jobs. And totally, if I'm seeing, because these are people-oriented smaller businesses, then I can generate much more if I split that 100 crore into 10 times. This equation really extrapolates if I can give this 100 crore to 100 different entrepreneurs. Because every small enterprise getting 1 crore rupee can clearly create, let's say, 2 additional jobs. And 6.3 MSMEs creating 2 additional jobs, we are looking at solving the entire employment problem in India. So this is the high level thinking that put sugar at a place where it can get you maximum return for your money in terms of employment, not in terms of forex, not in terms of GDP, but put your money right now where you can generate maximum employment. And that is where we are seeing the 3.5 lakh crore packages, 50,000 crore packages, smaller loans given to MSMEs with an expectation that they will be able to generate employment. So keep that in mind. That's the intention that we are looking at these incentives at. These MSMEs contribute 30% of India's GDP. Now, 30% of India's GDP is huge. Many countries would have their complete GDPs, which will be less than 30% of India's GDP. MSMEs contribute almost 50% of the total exports from India. It's not the listed companies, it's not the public or the private limited companies, but MSMEs, which are contributing 50% of total exports from India. Now, the government until 2006, this was a sector that was appreciated, but there was no formal registration or there was no organization or an ecosystem that used to enable growth of MSMEs. So in 2006, the MSMEDA Act was formed, which entailed that I will have to register as a MSME and then I get certain benefits. As we speak in 2020, we have about 1.4 crore MSMEs that have registered themselves under MSMEDA Act. If you look at 6.3 and trading businesses are not allowed, so you are looking at almost 30% of the MSMEs have been registered under the MSMEDA 2006. A significant jump in this, let's say in December and 2019, you may be having only 85 lakh MSMEs registered. But in the last 12 months, because of various incentives, benefits, and awareness, we have about 1.4 crore MSMEs which are now registered under the Act. In terms of our distribution of states, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal have the highest number of MSME enterprises, Maharashtra being the fourth. These are registered MSMEs. Tamil Nadu comes the third, but this is where is the distribution. So while Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu may be having the highest number of MSMEs, when it comes to registration, a feature is coming out that Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal are more. Maybe there is more awareness. There's a little bit of more politically activism that happens. So yes, those north states have a higher registration percentage, and some of the other states need to catch up in terms of registration. So if we have to, this ecosystem needs to be strong for our backbone to be strong. And only if our backbone is strong can we restart the economy post the pandemic. So this is the broad background why we are seeing so much of attention to MSMEs. But why does India have such large number of MSMEs? Why can't our businesses just become large, international, global overnight? But what's the feature that is driving our businesses to be not so large and MSMEs? And when I was discussing with some of the other faculties as well from some of the research institutes, what came out is that there are 5 reasons, particularly why we have so many MSMEs in India. And if I have to talk about those 5 reasons, the first is clearly entrepreneurship. Now, India is a land of entrepreneurship. As per a study, India ranks second in the world in terms of entrepreneurs that we have. So many communities in the south, in the west, Rajasthan, all of them essentially would be entreprising communities. It comes naturally to quite a few of us. In fact, I remember when I was thinking whether I should do my CA or not, one of the factors was that after doing CA, I can go for employment, but I can also do on my own practice. And that was the flexibility that the course offers to a lot of us, and entrepreneurship just comes naturally to quite a few of us. The second is the age of the population. Now, India is a relatively young population. The average age is only 29 years. And typically what we see is that a company mirrors the age of the founder. The company also grows elder, grows mature, becomes an adult, and then dies. 8 out of 10 companies grow with the entrepreneur and die with the entrepreneur. So at the age of 40, 50, when the entrepreneur is in his prime, you would see the companies and the businesses are also in the prime. India per se having a young population, the age of our entrepreneurs is also young. Now the question comes is that, why is it young? Because India has a history of 5,000 years, but why is the business is young? And one thing that came out is our recent opening up. It has only been 1991, friends, that the Indian economy was sort of opened up and the license Raj was abolished. Before that, you would have businesses, but there was significant control and lack of transparency. So it's just been 30 years that the Indian companies have got their free run. And one may argue that 30 years is enough for companies to grow. But mind you, friends, we are talking about a country. And 30 years is too small a period in the lifetime of a country. When I was doing a search on Google oldest companies in the world. I saw companies in Japan that have been registered in about 1600 years before, that is 400 AD. So they have been continuing for so much more time, about 10 companies. In France, Germany, there are so many companies which are 300 years old. And then to expect that a 30-year-old company in India would be able to compete is a slightly distant imagination. So 30 years, while sufficient, is small in the overall life cycle of a country, as we see. There was a lack of ecosystem. Until recently, the MSME Act is also 2006 effort. In fact, most of the amendments that we are seeing now only came in 2014. So it's hardly been 5-7 years that we have seen this ecosystem of MSME actually come up. And until now, that ecosystem was never there. You have seen the importance of ecosystem, let's say in our IT companies. The government policies surrounding information technology, the whole NASSCOM initiative, or the ecosystem around pharmaceutical companies, all of that have today made strong IT companies and strong pharma companies in India. That ecosystem for MSMEs was always lagging. And the current ecosystem also has scope for further improvement. And last but not the least is, of course, limited access to finance. India being a capital-starved country, access to capital is the single biggest challenge. And if capital is not available, you have concerns in terms of how companies will grow. So this is why we have so many small companies, but the silver lining is that every large company was once an MSME. And as things progress, as we tighten some of these things, these 6.3 crore MSMEs will only grow and ensure higher prosperity for India. So how does law define MSME? We spoke about the MSMED Act. The Act per se in 2006, which I have marked in a little transparent way, was saying that the classification should come under micro, small, or medium. So micro, small, and medium are the three classifications. And it had a separate threshold for manufacturing enterprises and services enterprises. For manufacturing enterprises, the threshold was linked to investment in plant and machinery. And for service enterprises, it was linked to investment in equipment. All of that changed when our finance minister in the Aatmanirbhar Bharat package announced revised MSME classification. Now, mind you friends, this is not been a spur of the moment decision that happened. It's been in 2018 and 19 that a RBI committee recommended that these MSME thresholds need to be enhanced. And it is only through the Aatmanirbhar Bharat package that these have been implemented, but this was in the works since quite some time. So what is the revised MSME classification? We now have two criteria, investment and annual turnover, but we don't have the bifurcation between manufacturing and services. We have the same threshold for manufacturing or services, but we have two different variables of investment and turnover. So a micro entity is one where your investments are less than 1 crore and your turnover is also less than 5 crore. It's and. So you need to make sure that both these conditions are fulfilled. Similarly, for small, we are looking at investments less than 10 crore and turnover less than 50 crore. And for medium, the Aatmanirbhar Bharat package had proposed 20 crore for investment and 100 crores for turnover. But subsequently, finally, it was considered that no, this limit can be further increased. And what we have in the final notification is investment of 50 crore and turnover of 250 crores. Friends, one feature that is consistent across these three is the investment to turnover ratio is 1:5. So if you have 1 crore here, turnover is 5 crore. If you have investment of 10 crore, turnover is 50 crore. If you have investment of 50 crore, turnover is 250 crore. So 1:5 is the investment to turnover threshold that they are considering. And if you comply with both these conditions, then you can register yourself as micro, small, or medium enterprises. It is generally felt appropriate that you should fall in the smallest of the bracket that you can from a benefits perspective. because not all benefits are available to every category. Like all benefits are available to micro, some benefits are not available to small, and quite a few benefits are not available to medium. So when in doubt, typically businesses would want to register themselves from a benefits perspective into a lower threshold so that they can entitle themselves for all the benefits that are available. The question comes that when we talk about investment, how should this investment be calculated? And when it is annual turnover, what is it that we should consider in annual turnover? So the law says that your calculation of investment should be only in plant, machinery, or equipment. You don't have to consider land, building, furniture and fixture. All of that is not to be considered. But whatever is your investment in plant and machinery, and that too as per your ITR, because in income tax you have these different classes of asset, the block of asset concept, and linked to that is something that you would consider your investment in plant and machinery. The question which is slightly unanswered in this new notification is whether you take a gross block or you take a net block. All across historically, it has always been clear that you need to take the gross block of plant and machinery and equipment. The date of purchase is what you take from considering whether your investment is crossing that threshold or not. You ignore all depreciation. You take the invoice value. In fact, it also says that even if you have purchased second-hand equipment, you need to take the full price of that particular machinery. But when you are linking it to ITR, ITR has only a net WDV feature. It doesn't have a gross WDV feature. So that is a bit of a concern in terms of what will be considered. But I would continue to believe that one needs to consider the gross value of investment in plant and machinery and not the net WDV. We have written questions to the ministry seeking clarifications, but haven't received an answer. But I think it would be safe to assume that one should take a gross block only and not the net block as it has been historically. Plant and machinery will have the same meaning as given in the income tax rules and shall include all tangible assets other than land, building, furniture, and fixtures. So you need to exclude your investment in this and then calculate. As far as your turnover is concerned, if there is some exports that you do of goods and services, you need to exclude that in your turnover. So only domestic turnover needs to be considered, and this turnover will be net of GST. So you need to take your net turnover after reducing exports and then see whether you fulfill that turnover criteria or not. PAN and GST has been made mandatory from 31st March 2021 for all registered MSME. As of now, PAN and GST is mandatory more for companies and LLPs, but they would want to make it mandatory for every MSME after 2021. Friends, until recently, there was Udyog Aadhar, which was the concept until July of 2020. And Udyog Aadhar was there since last 5 years. In fact, Udyog Aadhar started by Prime Minister Modi's Man Ki Baat, which he does on the radios once in a month, where he said that just like you have Aadhar for individuals, can we not have a one number for Udyog or for MSMEs? And that is where Udyog Aadhar was born in 2014. Now that thing has been slightly amended, and what you now have is Udyam registration, because no longer it is just manufacturing, but it is services as well. So it is Udyam registration portal, and from 1st July 2020, one will need to register under the Udyam registration portal. If you are already having registration under the Udyog Aadhar or the Entrepreneurs Memorandum under the old scheme, then you have time up till 31st of March 2021 to upgrade to the Udyam registration. But new companies will now directly register under the Udyam portal. There is now clarity, which was earlier not there, that what happens if my investment threshold increases Or what happens if my turnover threshold increases? Do I need to intimate the authority and then go to a next category? This is now clear that yes, you will have to intimate to the department or the website on the reclassification, but your status will remain for 1 year into that old category. Similarly, if it is a reverse graduation or a downward graduation, your status will remain until the end of the financial year, and from next April, you will come under that lower category. So upward change, reverse graduation, all of that need to be done if your turnover or if your investment changes categories. In fact, many of us would have seen that about 4 days before the CBDT and the MSME ministry have signed a MOU for exchange of information. So very soon we may have a natural pullout of data by the MSME ministry from the income tax portal for confirming the turnover and for confirming the investment value. We saw that only plant and machinery needs to be considered for investment value. But even within plant and machinery, there are certain exclusions which you don't have to consider when you are calculating the limits. This is a 2006 notification which says that certain equipments or certain costs should not be considered in plant and machinery. And there are about 10 such costs. For example, if you are having installation cost, or it is R&D equipment, pollution control equipment, power generation set, bank charges, gas producer plants, transportation charges, technical know-how, storage tanks, then you reduce that and then consider what is your investment in plant and machinery and then see in which threshold do you fall. I'm not sure how will they capture these exclusions from the income tax ITR because we don't have that sort of a breakup available in the ITR. But as an entity, if you are able to justify that this is what you have excluded, the law allows you to reduce them from plant and machinery and then consider what is your investment in plant and machinery. Similarly, firefighting equipment is also excluded. I will share this entire presentation with you all, with the team, and you can have this with you all so that it is a good reference value. But for now, I just wanted to drive home a point that don't take just the WDV of plant and machinery, reduce these items from that value. As Chairman Sir said that certain trading businesses are not eligible for MSME registration. Now, MSMEDA Act says that it is linked to the NIC code. All NIC codes are eligible for registration other than this 9 NIC codes. So NIC code 1, which is agriculture and hunting, animal production is excluded, and 2, 3, 45, 46, 47, 97, 98, 99 are excluded, which is where we have 45, which is wholesale and retail trade, and which is we have 46 and 47, which deals with wholesale and retail trade. So if you are in the trading business, typically you would be under the NIC code 45, and hence you are not eligible for registration as per the MSMEDA Act. Abhishek asked the question whether chartered accountants and CF firms are allowed to get registered. The answer is yes. As individual chartered accountants as well as CF firms, you can register yourself and your CF firms as MSMEs. MSME can be even a sole proprietorship, a partnership, a LLP, private limited company, public limited company, trust, society. All of those can be eligible for MSME registration. In fact, the institute has also given permission for CF firms to get registered under MSME, and it will not be in violation of the code of ethics or any other conflict situation. So, and as a firm, we have also registered ourselves for MSME, and a lot of firms have already done their registrations for MSME. So how does one go and register for MSME? From 1st of July 2020, which is the month that we are in, a new portal udyamregistration.gov.in is now live. It's a simple, hassle-free, self-declaration online automated process. Uh, it might mean differently for the group here, but it is so easy that entrepreneurs can themselves also do it. If you can use WhatsApp on your mobile phone, you can, I'm sure, do registration of Udyam registration on your own, and you don't need any external support or consultant to help you in the registration. You just need to put in your Aadhaar card. If you have PAN, GST, you put in, and then you get an OTP on your mobile, and a registration process is seamless. Within 2 days, typically you get the registration number. The entire process is on self-declaration. There is no certification required for turnover. There is no certification required for investments. There is no supporting documents that you attach. No CA certificate required. There is also no fee. It's a free of cost registration, and you don't need to even physically sign a single document. So in that Mann Ki Baat of Prime Minister Modi, his thought process was that let's make it absolutely simple for businesses to get registered. It should be one-click registration. So that is driving the approach here, that it is completely based on self-declaration without any supportings. As an outcome, what also happened is that a lot of these trading businesses or businesses which are otherwise not eligible based on their size also registered themselves under the MSME registration. And now there is this requirement that the income tax database will be shared with the MSME ministry, and those instances will be lesser. But as we speak, there are a lot of these companies which may not be eligible have got registered. But it's a balance that you need to do between ease of registration and the quality of registration that you get, and maybe the shift over here is more in relation to the ease of registration rather than the quality of registration. So I've got myself registered as a MSME. I was eligible. My plant turnover, everything was fitting well. I went to the Udyam portal and I registered myself. Now what? What are the benefits that are available to me as an SME? If one looks at it slightly holistically, there are more than one agencies which are working to make sure that this MSME ecosystem is supportive to small businesses. You have the MSME ministry. There's a dedicated ministry now which is only for MSMEs, and it is headed by a strong minister from Maharashtra, Nitin Gadkari. And you'll see his stamp and his blessings on most of the schemes of MSMEs that are coming in. But a dedicated MSME ministry is solely for giving out schemes and ensuring the ecosystem for MSMEs. We saw that finance or access to capital is one of the key concerns for MSMEs, and which is where RBI as a regulator comes in making sure that there is easing of resources available to MSMEs. BCG also referred that loan to MSMEs or can I get a loan are all RBI orchestrated schemes that we are seeing coming out to MSMEs. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs also comes into action and has benefits or has taken initiatives towards MSME regime. You have Ministry of Finance. We saw Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman coming under the Aatmanirbhar Bharat packet. A lot of initiatives were through the Ministry of Finance. And MSME or business as a chapter is a part of the ancillary list. So not only the central government and its arms, but also the state governments have the flexibility to help this ecosystem of MSME, which is where we see MSME benefits also being given by various states. In fact, each of the 28 states have a different policy for industry, and a lot of those policies are also for MSMEs. So what is in store by the MSME ministry? The MSME ministry has more than 30 schemes to support various MSME categories. In the next slide, I have listed those 30 schemes just so that we can understand what those schemes are. But all of these details are available on the website of the MSME ministry, and a good part has been done by the government in terms of consolidating all the benefits. There was always a concern that, look, there are so many scattered different regulators, different jurisdictions. How does one get benefit of all the schemes in one location? Which is where a new web portal is now live. It is known as champions.gov.in. And on champions.gov.in, all the benefits that are available to MSME is something that is available. As Mr. Ramaswamy said, that recovery of delayed payment is a big benefit that MSMEs have. To my mind, it's one of the single largest benefits that should force someone to get registered as an MSME. Historically, what has been seen and even reflected in the 2018 RBI study is that the average credit period for a MSME is anywhere between 140 to 180 days. We are looking at a 4 to 6 month cycle for a small entity to recover the money from the large supplier or the large customer that it would have supplied to. Now, if it is in a way financing the larger companies at the cost of the smaller companies, so it was felt that we should have a provision under which there should be a hard stop. And that hard stop is 45 days. So if at all within 45 days, a payment is not received by an MSME, there is mandatory interest that starts taking. And that mandatory interest is linked to 3 times the bank rate. So if a bank rate is, let's say 9%, we are looking at a 27% interest rate compounded on a monthly basis. And that is what the law prescribes. You don't have a choice. So this is one key benefit, and we'll talk more about it. And the second question comes, how do I ensure recovery? People felt this is good on paper, right? But how can I force a customer to give me money within 45 days? That is where there is a recovery mechanism, which is more of an online portal called Samadhan. And one can log into the Samadhan portal, upload the invoice or the work order, and this Samadhan portal is a deemed arbitration. Because the challenge is in India, to go for a 5 lakh recovery, I need to appoint arbitrators and do the entire legal process. Sometimes in the Indian litigation system, the process is more than the punishment. And in that situation, the Samadhan portal is institutional arbitration. Once a judgment is given by that particular agency, it is deemed arbitration. And we will see what benefits the Samadhan portal gives. And similarly, you have the Sambandh and the Sampark. Now, this Samadhan, Sambandh, Sampark are 3 words that is very frequently used in the MSME landscape. Samadhan we saw is the recovery portal. Sambandh is every PSU or central public sector undertaking needs to procure minimum 20% from MSMEs. Now, question was that how do MSMEs come to know what all tenders, what all purchase orders are open for bidding? And the ministry has now a Sambandh portal on which there is a data bank. Every MSME can go and register yourself on that Sambandh data bank. You can select which products you are interested in. So whenever there is a next requirement by any PSU or CPE, you will get a notification. Similarly, you'll also be able to see which are the live contracts where you as MSME can bid in that Sambandh portal. Sampark is a job portal for MSMEs who would like to recruit people, or for people who have been graduated but not getting jobs. Sampark is the portal that comes handy. Remember, employment is a large focus of the MSME initiatives and the push that we are looking over here. RBI did a good thing by including MSMEs in priority sector lending. Now, priority sector lending is a mandatory lending that banks need to do. About 20% of every bank's loan book should be to priority sector. And MSME is a part of the priority sector. So if you have a MSME registration, it will be that much more easier for your bank to give a loan to you, because bank is meeting the priority sector lending requirement that the bank has agreed to with the RBI. Similarly, the RBI has an interest subvention scheme under which if you are taking a overdraft or a working capital facility, 2% of interest is something that RBI will, it's a subvention scheme where you first pay the full interest and then you get that 2% back at the end of the year if you are an MSME and if you take advantage of that particular scheme. A very unique initiative and something that I personally like a lot is this TREDS initiative, or also known as TREDS. Now, TREDS is nothing but a bill discounting exchange. We will see in a separate slide, but it's revolutionary in a sense that you can discount your bill on an online website or discount your invoice in a manner that is very efficient. Because it is important, we'll also see it in a separate slide. RBI has liberalized provisioning norms for loan to MSME. There is a scheme as we speak that if at all one-time restructuring needs to be done before December 2020 and it is a MSME, banks have much more leeway in terms of getting that debt restructuring done. The provisioning norms of banks are also that much lenient if it comes to MSMEs. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs. 3 key initiatives taken by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. First was mandatory reporting of MSME dues. Many of us who may be doing compliances for our clients would know that there was a form that was introduced by the ROC or the MCA last year, where on a biannual basis, one needs to fill a form and give details about the dues that are there to MSMEs. Similarly, interest outstanding also disclosed to the MSMEs. So sunlight is the best disinfectant. Get the data out from companies that what is it that has not been paid to MSMEs, and once you have data, action can be taken. Fast track exit scheme for closure of companies. This was one of the things that MCA initiated, where for smaller companies, you now have a fast track exit scheme for closure of companies. It is not linked to MSME registration, but it is in that fashion to enable smaller businesses to close faster. The MCA also prescribes under Companies Act that whenever a company is preparing annual accounts, in the creditors, one needs to disclose payments that are due to MSMEs. We would have seen in all companies that where we have a breakup of how much is due to MSMEs. This again is from the perspective that please disclose your payments. Friends, one problem that is always coming is that while law is there, while there are all of these provisions, as a MSME, I can't go and take action against a customer, because while maybe the law may protect me, it is clearly the last transaction that I would do with that customer. I am not in the bargaining power, and tomorrow I can lose a client, and under that fear, many MSMEs don't take action. So the thought process is that let's not require MSMEs to take any action. Let's pick up data from the clients. In fact, now they have linked the MSME portal to the GST portal, which is where from March 31st, 2020, every MSME will need to have GST number. And on the GST portal, you certainly upload the invoice data. Now, if you have uploaded the invoice data, one would know whether recovery has happened or not. If on your GST, the client has taken input credit, it is a proof that the invoice has been accepted. So catching the invoice data from the GST portal and taking automated action for recovery of money, including interest, is what is the next step without requiring the MSMEs to take any active step. So as a MSME, I can say, look, I didn't do anything. You did not pay me. This is the repercussion that you need to bear. So we are moving to that regime of automated recovery rather than a triggered recovery. Ministry of Finance introduced special provisions in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So this NCLT or Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code which came in, there was always a question whether a promoter can bid for his own company or not. There have been 2 schools of thoughts. One of them say that what's the problem? If the erstwhile promoter is willing to give the same money as any third person is giving, allow the erstwhile promoter to bid for that company. But there's a second school of thought which says that, look, the promoter can game the system. It can shortchange the creditors by coming back at a reduced liability profile. So for MSMEs, the erstwhile promoters can go ahead and bid for his company again. But if it is a non-MSME, then you cannot. Typically what happened in the SR steel insolvency process as well. But if you are a MSME, you are allowed to bid back for your asset, and the rigors of section 29A don't apply to you. Of course, there are various tax benefits and exemptions that under income tax, though not for MSMEs, but for small businesses in terms of doing simplification of accounts or composition scheme in the GST, and the Aatmanirbhar Bharat package, which essentially it's a joint initiative of various ministries, but it was the Ministry of Finance which took the lead. We'll have a separate slide on seeing the benefits under Aatmanirbhar Bharat. Friends, the state government's package are very interesting, and they are not much talked about. But most of the states have their own scheme for investing, and they also have separate portals for MSME. I was just checking online, and I could find a very detailed MSME, easybusiness.tn.gov.in/MSME, which gives details about various state schemes that are available for in the state of Tamil Nadu. In Maharashtra, there are concession electricity bills, there is concession in stamp duty, there is concession in GST refund, STCG, and various other schemes that are available for MSMEs. So make sure that you also study some of these state initiatives. But by and large, here is the framework of benefit that you get as a MSME. These, friends, are the 30 schemes that I referred to, which are by the Ministry of MSME. You will see most of these schemes, like point number 8 is the Koyar Vikas Yojana, or a lot of these things which would be for smaller businesses. But for example, it is in relation to agriculture. Mr. Ramaswamy spoke about scheme number 20, which is ISO 9001, 14,000 reimbursement. You can get your trademark registration cost and the patent registration cost back. All these are schemes, and a good part is that on this champions.gov.in, all of these schemes have been summarized in one page. So you have one page per scheme, and if you go through that in a very easy language, you would be able to see whether you can take benefit of that scheme or not. And of course, the MSME government website is also there. But personally, I feel champions.gov.in gives a lot of more insights into these schemes. We spoke about the Recover initiative, right? So because we are all CAs and also want to understand the law, the MSMEDA Act itself has a section which mandates that within 45 days from the acceptance or deemed acceptance, the payment needs to be done. Even if the buyer and the seller have agreed to 90 days, doesn't matter. 45 days is something that after which payments need to be done, or else interest will start on a monthly compounding 3 times the bank rate. And if this is not happening, then notwithstanding anything contained in any law for the time being in force. So it's a non-obstante section 18, which says that if there is any dispute in making payment to MSME, you can file an application with the Facilitation Council, which is Micro and Small Enterprises Facilitation Council. This council is in every state. So the act says that MSEFC will be set up by the state government, and if at all the MSME is registered in that state, you can apply to this particular state MSEFC for recovery of your particular loan. The reference that is made to this council within 90 days they have to resolve is what the MSMEDA Act says. So perhaps for a very few instances where there is a timeline in which this particular dispute needs to be resolved and it cannot stretch beyond a point. Also, appeal is not possible. The customer can do an appeal only after depositing 75% of the amount. So it's a deterrent that once this facilitation council decides on something, you need to deposit 75% even to make an appeal. Just like similar to sometimes we have in our ITAT appeals, where 20% need to be deposited. This is a very high threshold of 75% that needs to be deposited. The problem was coming that the MSEFCs are state and this act is central. So the central government has now launched an online portal, which is samadhan.msme.gov.in. You can go online, put your Udyog Aadhaar number or Udyam registration number. A scanned copy of your invoice or your work order can be uploaded online, and the portal will automatically make an application to the State Micro, Small and Enterprises Facilitation Council. So you don't have to run behind and do physical coordination, but online filing will happen through this one portal. Because you may have a customer in Jharkhand and you may not want to go and file there. You can go and do it on Samadhan and it will be handled through this online portal. Friends, this Samadhan initiative is not available to medium enterprises. This whole recovery mechanism is only for small and micro and not for medium enterprises. So make sure that if you are a medium enterprises, these benefits are something that are not available to you. It is a very pro MSME initiative where even if there is a silence of the buyer after physical receipt of goods, it can't make the claim ineligible by the council. Silence means deemed acceptance. Whether a legal notice is prerequisites, no need to have any legal notice. If I already have a litigation pending, can I now go to the Samadhan initiative? The answer is no. If at all you have already initiated in a civil suit, then you cannot now come into the Samadhan portal. This Samadhan portal, in a way, is also available to chartered accountants. I, for a fact, know 2-3 CA firms would have made references in the Samadhan portal against their clients, but this is also available for CA firms in case of non-recoveries. Apart from the Samadhan portal, the SIDBI, Small Industries Development Bank of India, has various schemes dedicated to MSMEs. And SIDBI.in also accepts online application for loan and equity. In fact, when the COVID pandemic started, the government announced a loan scheme for personal protective equipments, PPEs, masks, etc. And the entire loan was granted through a SIDBI online portal. And within 3 days, disbursement happened. And the PPE, we all know how India could manage to make sure that we are PPE surplus. So even if you go on SIDBI.in, you'll be able to see about at least 10 funding related schemes which are there, and they accept online application as well. There are few other initiatives which are currently available. This is not as a part of Aatmanirbhar Bharat. This is currently available even other than Aatmanirbhar Bharat. We have the credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. So if a MSME is taking loan up to 2 crores, then there is no need for any collateral or any third-party guarantee. How does one apply for this? You need to go to champions.gov.in, select credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. There is a button of apply there only, and you can make an application with the attachments. So it was so much difficult earlier when this technology was not there, where you had to physically go and so much of rounds would have happened with a particular agency. But with technology, not only is there tracking in terms of how the system is working, but also ease in terms of making these applications. There is a guarantee fee over here that requires to be paid over and above the interest, but you may not have to give any collateral or third-party guarantees up to a loan of 2 crores. Interest subvention scheme is available. 2% of interest subvention is something that MSMEs can get the benefit. I know for sure because a very close friend has taken benefit of this scheme, and there's a cap of 1 crore, but on a 1 crore, you save 2% interest subvention for a particular year. There are credit linked capital subsidy scheme. So if you are taking loan then in that situation, a 15% subsidy is available, and you should have this particular loan deployed into upgrading your technology or upgrading your manufacturing. So it's a subsidy but linked to capital, and there is a cap of 1 crore because predominantly it is for MSMEs. Intellectual property and international marketing, there's a 50% subsidy for patent registration and reimbursement of participation costs in international trade fairs. Champions.gov.in, open the intellectual property scheme, make an application, and if it complies, then the next steps will happen. We spoke about the trade receivable financing platform. Let's spend 2 minutes on that. Now, RBI on this TREDS platform has 3 exchanges, similar to a stock exchange where we have buyers and sellers. This TREDS platform also has 3 exchanges, the M1 exchange, the RXIL, and the Invoice Mart. What is the problem that TREDS is solving? Let's assume I, as a MSME, I am supplier to Maruti Suzuki Limited, and I would have done a 10 lakh rupee billing to Maruti, and I'm only going to get money after 45 days. I want money earlier. I can go online on any of these exchanges. Let's say I go on Invoice Mart. I register my with my MSME number, and I upload my invoice of 10 lakh rupee to Maruti. It is mandated that all central public sector undertakings and companies which have more than 500 crore of turnover have to register on this platform. So Maruti, having a turnover of 500 crore and more, is registered as a corporate on this platform. So when I will say I select Maruti invoice 10 lakh, a prompt will go to Maruti that are you accepting this invoice from Anand for 10 lakh rupees? Maruti will have to say yes. Now the lenders get that data, that here is an invoice from Anand that has been acknowledged and accepted by Maruti for 10 lakh rupees, and after 45 days Maruti is going to make the payment. Now lenders can bid for that particular invoice or a basket for invoice, that at what price they would like to discount that invoice for me. So I get money upfront. Maruti doesn't have to, Maruti gets a 45-day credit. And for me, I also get a non-recourse financing. Tomorrow anything happens to the customer, I don't have to care because of the MSME. Once Maruti accepts my invoice, I don't need to bother about any eventuality. The other advantage for MSME is that it is a Maruti Suzuki backed invoice. If I am going myself to take a personal loan or a working capital, I may get it at 13%. But I'm invoicing, I'm discounting an invoice of Maruti, which is, and I will enjoy the credit rating and security profile of Maruti, thereby maybe even getting it at 9% and 10%. So this is a platform which connects MSMEs, corporates, and lenders. Lenders have to do their 20% priority sector lending. They will have to go and scout MSMEs. But here is a platform available to them. And if they give loan to MSME, it also complies with their priority sector lending. So it benefits the MSMEs without recourse discounting, lower rate of interest, unsecured, and no facility documentation. You don't need to enter into a hypothecation deed or into any kind of loan agreement. It's an online exchange, and you have done and sold, and you get the money. Corporates, they save on procurement costs. There's no borrowing in the books of the corporate, and better working capital cycle for extended time. And it's mandatory for them to get on this portal. For lenders, they achieve their priority sector lending, get corporate security profile for MSME borrower, and reduce their operational cost. So it's a win-win situation. And last year, friends, about 11,000 crores of disbursement happened through the TREDS portal to MSMEs. Quite a few of us, appreciate and get a handle of some of these things only when they are in the mainstream. But having the know-how of some of these currently available benefits can really make a difference in testing times that we are in for us and our clients. There's a proposal to link the TREDS with the government e-procurement market so that any invoice of any PSU will by default be discounted by these lenders and you get credit upfront. Make sure you go through the website of M1, RXL or InvoiceSmart and it will be very clear. In fact, you will also see drop-down links of which all companies are registered. And if at all you are billed to any of those companies, you can go ahead and discount the invoice on this TREDS portal. So apart from this came the Aatmanirbhar Bharat package, and it has given emergency credit line to MSMEs for almost 3 lakh crores. This is a big number when you see it in the context of total MSME borrowings of about 16 lakh crores. So you are looking at almost 20% more for every loan that is given to MSME. And this is guarantee free, collateral free, additional funding to borrowers. In fact, you also don't need to pay any guarantee fee to anyone for taking this benefit. The benefit is capped at 20% of your outstanding fund-based loans as on 29 February 2020. So if in the end of February, before the pandemic actually started showing its true colors, you had outstanding loan. Remember, this is not sanctioned loans, this is outstanding loans. And fund-based loans, doesn't include non-fund-based LCs, guarantees, etc. So if you have a 100 rupee outstanding fund-based loan, you get 20 rupee additional loan from the same set of banks that have currently granted you the 100 rupees. This scheme is not only for MSMEs, but to all borrowers who have borrowings of up to 25 crores and 100 crores of turnover. So even traders who fall within this limit are eligible without MSME registration. You don't need a Udyog Aadhar or a Udyog registration for taking benefit of this scheme because the thresholds here are different. The additional amount that you will get, 20%, will have a 4-year tenure. You don't need to pay any principal for the first 12 months, and after that, you will have to pay in equal installments over the next 36 months. Interest is capped at 9.25% for banks and 14% for NBFCs. This, to my mind, is a reasonable rate of interest. 9.25 for an unsecured loan is something that is exciting. For NBFCs, of course, it is much higher because their cost of capital is higher. This scheme can be availed till 31st October 2020. And in fact, traders, non-MSME are also eligible as we spoke. Friends, this scheme is not something where you would need to run behind your existing lenders. The mandate to banks and NBFCs is that to all your borrowers who fit within this limit, if at all you feel that they need more money, please give them an option. So it's an opt-out. You need to then tell no to the bank that I don't want this. Otherwise, they are reserving this limit for you if at all you would like to take that. Similar to the opt-out kind of a thing when was moratorium for this 3+3 months. This scheme is also opt-out, and a lot of people have started receiving these loans. In fact, every week the ministry also comes out with amounts that have been granted, and a significant number of loan has already been granted as a part of this initiative. The second scheme under Aatmanirbhar Bharat that is of importance is the subordinate debt scheme. So while emergency credit line is available to borrowers who have not defaulted, the subordinate debt is to non-performing MSMEs or even stressed MSMEs. And the limit there is 20,000 crores. It is structured slightly differently, where 15% of your facility, subject to a cap of 75 lakhs, will be given to the promoters or the shareholders or the partners. And the promoter will have to infuse that particular number as equity into the entity. And you can apply this only through scheduled commercial banks. This is not something that is available to NBFCs. But disbursements have also started under this scheme. Friends, the emergency credit line and the subordinate debt is at the end of the day debt, and there is a repayment obligation though delayed. Personally, I feel this equity infusion is a significant game changer where the commitment of 50,000 crores of equity infusion is something that the government is contemplating. SIDBI, Small Industries Development Bank of India, is the agency that is implementing this scheme, and SIDBI will shortlist funds, which are private equity funds, venture capital funds, alternative investment funds, to whom this 50,000 crores will be given. The government will not directly invest, but government is fund of funds that will invest into certain funds. Applications are now available on SIDBI website, and one can go and make an application, and SIDBI's funds will consider that on the merits. Global tenders being disallowed for orders up to 200 crores. The fourth announcement helping MSMEs was in procurement by central public sector undertakings or by the government. The government also has an option to go for global tenders, which basically means that a tender would be sent to various embassies of other countries that are there in India, and those embassies can forward the tender to their home country and see if foreign companies would like to bid or not. That process government will not do for orders up to 200 crores. Important to understand, we are not banning foreign companies from participating into these tenders, but the active process of reaching out through embassies is something that will not be done for orders up to 200 crores. Last but not the least, MSME receivables from government and central public sector undertakings to be released within 45 days. I don't think this is a benefit at all because they need to do that. But yeah, as things stand, this has been considered as a benefit of releasing funds to MSMEs. So Aatmanirbhar Bharat package gave us these 5 incentives. Of particular importance, because we are all chartered accountants here, is to have the thought process behind this emergency credit line. As we would know that we have this concern that our loan and deficit should not go beyond the point as a country, some smart thinking has gone behind this emergency credit line. The government has formed a trust, and that particular credit guarantee trust is guaranteeing the obligation to these banks. It is expected that some part of this particular additional loan will not be recoverable by the banks. And to that extent, this credit guarantee trust will make good the loss to the bank. But rather than taking the entire hit of 3 lakh crores right now into the deficit, a sum of, a partly sum, I think only about 20,000 crore is something that is right now transferred to the NCGTC. And subsequently, over a period of 4 years, further funds will be transferred to this guarantee trust. Because the benefit of security as available to the existing lenders is also available to this additional 20%. And typically in a public sector, a PSU lending, you would have some security cushion available. So this 20% also gets the benefit of the existing security pool. And only if there is a shortfall will this guarantee trust come into play. And thereby the impact of this 3 lakh crore on the budget each year will not be too significant from an overall fiscal deficit perspective. So I think it's a little bit smart in terms of how it has been played out. And many borrowers have started taking benefits of this initiative. Before we go to questions, I think I have myself plotted a few FAQs that typically are there. And maybe these would also be in minds of few of us. The first question is it necessary to do any regular filings for Udyam registration? Answer is no. You don't have to do any annual return or anything like that. Only if at all your category changes because of your change in investment or change in turnover, you are obliged to make an application and update so that you fall under the right category. Other than that, once you make an application, you don't need to do any regular filings for your Udyam registration. How is investment value to be calculated in case assets are purchased in multiple tranches? So I have purchased a machine in 2005, and I have also purchased additional machines in 2015. The answer here is simple. You take gross value of the invoice value of the machine you purchased in 2005 and add it to the gross value of the new machine that you purchased in 2015. So you take both the gross values and add it to arrive at your investment value. Are pure trading entities allowed to be registered under Udyog Aadhar? The answer is no. Pure trading entities are not allowed. But if at all you have manufacturing and service business that you have, then certainly for that manufacturing and services part, you can register yourself under Udyog Aadhar and now Udyam registration. Can professionals like chartered accountants, lawyers, company secretaries also register themselves? Answer is yes, including their firms can also get registered under MSME DA. Is registration a must for availing the benefits of MSMEs? So there was a litigation that happened in the matter of Ramki infrastructure in Delhi High Court, where the question was that a MSME had gone and made a complaint on the Samadhan portal. And the customer took an objection that when I had purchased the goods from you, at that point in time, you were not a MSME. You did not have the Udyog Aadhar. So you cannot take benefit of this facilitation portal. Delhi High Court said that, look, the fact that he has taken MSME registration at a later point in time doesn't mean that he was not a MSME earlier. If earlier he was filling in the definition of MSME in terms of investment and turnover, registration is only a conclusive proof that you are a registered MSME, but it doesn't restrain you from any of the benefits available to MSMEs. But typically what happens is that for any of these schemes, you would need to first mention your number, and you will have to have that number to take benefits. So while a legal view is that registration is not must, as a practical view, you would need registration for all benefits. Are there any downsides or cost for registration of Udyog Aadhar? To my mind, there are no downside nor any cost in terms of Udyog Aadhar registration. Perhaps the only downside is sometimes the perception that some clients may have that, if I have choice between two vendors, one being MSME registered and one not, there may be a perception to not engage with a registered guy because he may have certain benefits and recourses. But I still don't think it's a downside, because those are the rights that the law gives me. And if I don't exercise or choose to exercise my right, I can't blame anyone more than myself for the condition. But yeah, sometimes from that overall perspective, that is the only downside that I can remotely think of. Other than that, I don't see any downside in that sense. So these were, Abhishek, the 6 FAQs that I had. I think we are right on time on 7:30 to maybe take some of the questions that other participants may have. And I hope this has been informative, and we could spend the last 90 minutes in understanding and being aware of something more.
Yeah, Anand, thank you so much. In fact, there are so many questions. We'll take all. I think few questions are beyond MSME also. So if you could answer them also.
Sure, I'll try my best.
Yeah, there are some on GST too. Yeah, just a second. I just share my screen. Let me know once my screen is visible to you. Yeah.
It's loading. Yes, we can see now.
Yeah. For MSME payment need to be made within 45 days. If MSME vendor not paid GST and not reflected in GST return, can company hold GST payment on account of non-filing of GST return.
So, the question here is that MSME vendor has not paid GST. So it's also something where, you had an obligation to make payment of that GST, and because of which the customer or the client has held back GST. This was a specific matter that also came up at the Samadhan, the facilitation center, and it went in favor of the client or the customer to say that, look, you cannot recover the GST because you have also been at fault. But if you have paid your GST and still you are not getting that payment, then certainly you have a case that within 45 days, even the GST payment needs to be done, or else interest starts on the GST portion as well.
Retention amount will be payable as per terms of agreement after completion of 12 to 24 months. Whether retention amount also needs to be paid within 45 days from the date of invoice.
Yes, so this is 45 days from the sort of due date. So if you have agreed that this is a retention amount as per the terms of the agreement, then it is not due in that sense. And there is on the Samadhan portal there are about thousands of judgments that they keep on giving and keep on updating. And again, a similar case was there where the MSME argued that, look, once you accept, it is done. But finally, the customer or the client explained that it is a standard business requirement that there is a retention period, and 45 days will start from the end of the 12-month or the 24-month period. So from now, you can't ask for that. But after 45 days of the 12-month, certainly you have a case to go against the client or the customer.
I think it's the same three questions which you have covered in one, differently worded actually. An industrial unit with investment less than 10 crores but with turnover above 50 crores, is the unit small or medium?
So you need to comply with both the turnover threshold and the investment threshold. So in this situation, if your turnover is more than 50 crores, you would not fall into that bracket, and you will need to go into the medium criteria because you are not fulfilling the turnover criteria.
I think it is the Indian mindset. We are always behind smaller, risk-free setup rather than thinking about large-scale productions, where China is leading. Volume business is what is driving China. Your thoughts, please.
I think, you can't compare China and India, a democracy and a party that can drive a country. China has its own set of problems. India has its own set of problems. But yes, what has worked in China will not work in India, and we will need to have our specific solutions. I don't think we should brand ourselves as smaller, risk-free setup. I think it's a transition that we are in. If you make a 13-year-old compete with a 30-year-old in terms of boxing, you are certainly going to have one-sided results. But as time passes, as Indian businesses grow, that is where you'll see a fair challenge. Let's not forget it's been just 30 years that most of these businesses are coming up. So I wouldn't want to brand ourselves as being smaller or risk-free. I think we are only at the beginning of that cycle. China is a little ahead in that.
Should consider the turnover and investment in plant and machinery. For example, if I wanted to register for MSME in July 2020, what is the period of turnover or investment I should consider? If it is last year financial year 2019-20 or past 12 months as on the date of application.
Last ITR. So your income tax return
preceding financial year.
Preceding financial year income tax return.
Suppose my investment is less than 1 crore, but my turnover exceeds 5 crores, then can I register for MSME? The two questions.
You can register, but because your turnover is more than 5 crores, you will fall under the small category.
The next one says investment is less than 1 crore, turnover more than 5 crore and less than 50 crores. Under which category my enterprise will fall?
You will be under the small category.
sales to SEZ units, will it be considered under export and hence not to be considered while computing turnover?
Yeah, this is an important question, whether sales to SEZ is considered as exports. I think it is not strictly clear, but they are saying that the sales will be linked to what is mentioned in your GST returns as well, especially from March 2021. I would want to believe that sales to SEZ units should be considered as exports and thereby not being considered under the turnover. Because here, this is not an anti-abuse law. This is a law that is promoting MSMEs. And that is where we need to see this as an enabling provision and hence take a slightly view that is beneficial to the MSME. So in case of absence of exact guidance, I would want to err on the side of considering sales to SEZ as exports.
Beyond certain years, say 15 years, it is not possible to find out the original cost of few assets purchased even earlier to that date. Can we take its WDV for such assets purchased beyond a particular date?
Yeah, so I think we will need to have the book value to justify, but since there is no certification and it's more of a self-declaration, you can do a at-risk filing because you don't need to have the invoices or any of the cross blocks available. And if it is more than 15 years, more the reason. But the law says that it has to be your invoice value. And more than 15 years, you can do with the self-declaration. WDV certainly you cannot take. Maybe you can estimate what was the value when you purchased and take that rather than WDV today.
Next is GST mandatory for a turnover below 20 lakh cases? I think it is optional.
Yeah, not now, but the idea is after March 21, if at all you want the MSME benefits, they are making GST mandatory. So even if you have the turnover that is below the registration threshold, if you want to get the MSME benefits, that might again be a trigger for you to register as a GST and get GSTI.
In the case of reverse graduation, that is from the higher category to the lower category, when should the intimation about the same be given or made, though it will become effective only from 1st April of the next financial year?
Yeah, typically the intimation will happen from the time you are aware. And I would assume that since it is linked to the ITR and you would be filling, let's say, ITR sometime in July, August, September, that is where you would exactly know what is the turnover, the audited turnover of previous year. So assuming in September you are clear, you will have to make a reverse graduation sort of intimation, and it will get effective from April of next year.
Can a wholly owned subsidiary of a foreign company eligible for MSME registration?
There is no restriction as such, but when we saw the NIC codes, and certain NIC codes are not eligible for registration as MSME. In that, one of the NIC code is arms of foreign bodies, organizations operating in India. While strictly speaking, it looks like the UN, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and some of the other international bodies operating in India should not be covered. But that is the only iota of doubt. But I for sure know various wholly owned subsidiaries that have taken MSME registration, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be eligible.
For registration to start, the initial requirement is putting up the Aadhaar number. Then in case of LLP or company, what has to be put in?
So you would take the Aadhaar number of the partner or the director.
What I think you already covered it, but still we'll take it again. Is the mixed business where manufacturing and trading both are there? Can they go for MSME registration?
Yes, you can have the MSME registration for entity as a whole, as long as you have a manufacturing business that fits within that NIC code. Additional trading business will not make you ineligible.
Same thing, trading and service also, I think it is the same answer.
Yeah.
Okay, according to your, I think there are some customer complaints for you. According to your presentation, it takes not more than 2 days for MSME registration, but few of my clients haven't received MSME registration even after 10 days. Whom to contact in such situation to expedite the process? Next, we have applied for Udyam registration for one of the clients on 15 July. Until yet, there has been no update on the same. So wanted to know generally how much time does the registration process takes place? Is there any way we can track it? Third, existing MSME registration is validated in new portal launched in July 2020, but no further communication from the department regarding Udyam registration number. What is the next course of action to get the Udyam number?
Yeah, so I think of all the professionals, chartered accountants who have experienced GST implementation should not ask this question. Because we are going through this changing system from Udyog Aadhaar to Udyam registration. And if you are filing on this Udyam registration, even we are facing challenges that 2-day period is not working and it has been stretched. But I would think that it is just a process of getting into this new system and upgrading. Hopefully, once this particular pain of transition is over, we should go back to the 2-day registration that Udyog Aadhaar was promising. I think it's a part of the technology era and the flip side that we live in. But I think as we go forward, this should improve. But today there are these challenges which one has to acknowledge. There are grievance forums available online where you can write an email and ask a clarification. Our experience has not been so good in terms of response from those grievance centers. But yes, I think we'll have to understand the situation of pandemic with limited staff that some of these people would be operating.
And entities purchasing yarn and giving it to viewers outside on job work basis. As such, the entity is not running plant and machineries. Manufacturing activities are outsourced by that entity. Is that entity eligible for registrations as manufacturer or what?
Yes, so even if you are outsourcing or doing job work, you will have your value addition, you will have your GST under that same HSN NIC code. So you will be eligible as a manufacturer, and that is fine, you can get registered. On the previous question, DCG, where people have challenges in terms of obtaining registration in time, once you apply for registration, it is fair enough to say that your time starts from there. Even if you may get registration, let's say after 10 days, 15 days, for all practical purposes, you have made an application on that day, and you should consider yourself registered from that day, is the solace that one can offer.
Can you please share the notification number which specifically excludes exports from the turnover limit?
Yeah, this has been just come in July, the notification where they notified this Udyam registration process. I can share it with BCG, but even if you go on any of these portals where they are specifying this notification of Udyam Aadhaar, in that same notification, you also have this clarification on export not being considered.
What happens to the existing MSME registration? Can it be ported to the Udyam registration process?
Yes, so existing MSME registration, you have time period till March 2021. And on the Udyam portal, you have two windows. One window is for existing MSMEs to get ported into the Udyam registration, and second is for new registrants. So you can go on the window that is for existing MSMEs before March 21 and upgrade yourself into Udyam registration.
Mandatory interest for delayed payments, is it payable only by large companies, or is an MSME which owes money to another MSME also liable to pay the 3 times interest to the other MSME?
Yeah, so we need to see it from the perspective of the supplier or the service provider. If the supplier or the service provider is an MSME, he or it gets that benefit, irrespective of whether the customer or the client is also a MSME. So if you are a MSME wanting to recover from another MSME, these provisions would still apply.
How to avail the interest subvention scheme? Where can we get more information?
Yeah, I think it's a single window, champions.gov.in. You can go on existing schemes under that portal where you have this interest subvention scheme, and application and all details are also given in that same champions.gov.in.
Sir, when existing UAM client registers in the Udyam portal, it first asks to enter the existing UAM and confirmation from OTP. Then it says revisit after some days. Not clear how to get Udyam registration for the existing UAM holders.
Yeah, again, as a part of the teething issue, currently the new registrations are also getting delayed, and this transition of old registration is a further pain. So this would resonate with the earlier point that this transition, these issues are there, but all we can do is keep trying.
If the clients are not providing breakup of MSMEs, how do we protect from our perspective? I think it's
Simple. Qualify the report.
Okay. Is there any minimum amount of recoverables to apply on Samadhan portal for recovery?
No, there's no minimum. As long as you have an invoice, you can use that portal.
Both buyer and seller are micro enterprises, and buyer fails to pay within 45 days. Can a seller approach authority?
Yes. Irrespective of both being MSMEs, you can go and approach the authority.
As per Income Tax Act, in depreciation rates, computer software is under P&L, Plant and Machinery Act. So investment in computer software can be included in investment in plant and machinery. If yes, then recent notification mentioned the words that all such tangible assets.
Correct. This applies only to tangible assets. So if at all you have any elements of computer software or those 11 items that are excluded in the plant and machinery, you have to remove that and then arrive at a number.
All companies which have more than 500 crores turnover need to register under trades.
Yes, it's compulsory and mandatory for companies having more than 500 crore to register on trends.
Our clients getting emails from NESL for acknowledgement of borrowings. Is this mandatory to respond or acknowledge?
So yeah, a slightly different question on this NSCL, but this is the database that NSCL is set up under Information Exchange Utility. So under IBC, NSCL is one of the Information Exchange Utility, and tomorrow it is a database for anyone who wants to see how much of loan is outstanding, then they can do. So it's not legally mandatory, but your bankers would want a confirmation that you give and confirm the NSCL portal so that they are more clear in terms of your acknowledgement of the debt.
Does the 45 days credit limit on the invoice apply to goods or service purchased by MSME from another MSME? If yes, how will the reporting of delay be done in the MSME if it is not corporate entity?
Yeah, so first question is yes, 45-day credit limit applies to MSME purchasing from MSME also, it does apply. However, if your client is not a corporate entity, then he will not have to report under the financial statements, and that disclosure will not be there. You will have to then go and upload your invoice on the portal or your work order on the portal to justify your claim. If you don't have an invoice or if you don't have a work order, the portal allows you to give an affidavit that you have made these supplies, and that also is a valid proof of sale or supply.
Just a second. Abhishek, I have taken questions till 7:23. Any questions beyond that, you may also kind of have a look at it. Yeah. Is it possible to know whether a company was already registered under MSME or not? Any link to check that online?
There's no link to find out whether a company is a MSME or not. But if you have a Udyog Aadhaar number or a Udyam registration number, you can put it online to see whether it is a genuine MSME or not. So I can't find out if ABC Private Limited is MSME, but his number I can certainly put to see if he's registered or
not. Is it possible like a company is already registered and not aware of the numbers? Then if it applies second time, will an error pop up that you're already registered, something like that?
Yes, it's linked to Aadhaar. If at all you are using that same Aadhaar, it will say that you're already registered.
To Samadhan for recovery, can we apply for recovery from the other MSME as well, or is it for recovering from non-MSME? I think it is
from
for
other
everybody.
MSMEs as well.
I was wondering if the credit facilities like SIDB, interest, etc. are mutually exclusive. Example, 2 crore without securities and 1 crore 15% rebate machinery loan.
No, they are not mutually exclusive. These are different schemes, and if you qualify for these schemes, then you can take benefit of all of those. Each of them have different qualification criteria, but it's not that if you take one, you cannot take the other.
Due to additional compliances, if you deal with MSME, large corporates may prefer not to deal with MSME. What are your views?
Yeah, I think that was what I touched upon in terms of maybe perhaps the only percepted downside. I still don't think it matters because now it's almost 1.5 crore MSME registered. Maybe if you were in the earlier 2-3 lakh, then you may feel that you are at a disadvantage. But now, more or less so many people, that strength is there in terms of the MSME registration, and we will have to, stand up for our rights. So I don't think this can be an excuse of not getting registration and coming into the mainframe.
In fact, like people in companies insisting other smaller companies to take GST, though they were not required to do. Likewise, I also learned that there are bigger organizations who tell even chartered accountants not to go under MSME so that they could pay you after 45 days.
Yeah, I agree.
While it is mandatory for companies with turnover above 500 crores, in reality, many private sector companies are not registered, though CPSEs are registered. A forum to appeal against this non-registration.
So it's a circular by RBI, blessed by MCA. So there's a non-compliance of that particular. You can file a complaint with the RBI or with the ROC as a grievance forum. A lot of companies in the private sector are also registered. In fact, there's a drop-down list available for anyone to see on this M1 exchange or Invoice Smart exchange. And it's a pretty long list of many companies who have registered themselves. So yes, maybe some private sector companies may have missed out, and you can prompt them. And the forum of appeal is the MCA against the company or the RBI.
Can a chit fund company or NBFC recover its due from its subscribers through Samadhan scheme?
So there is a question whether NBFC can become MSME or not, because effectively it is neither manufacturing nor service nor trading. And though some NBFCs, because of self-declaration, etc., would have registered themselves as MSME, per se, they may not fit in any of the NIC codes, because interest is not a NIC code that would be there. So given that, I think the first hurdle is whether an NBFC can get registered or not. And second is the NBFC has various fair practices code and recovery codes with the RBI. And typically the recoveries would also be determined by the fair practices and fair recovery codes of the RBI. I would think NBFCs would be bound by those circulars of RBI more rather than using the Samadhan scheme.
What is the Udyam registration process for existing MSME holders?
Yeah, so existing MSME holders before March need to port to Udyam registration. There is a separate link on the Udyam registration portal for existing MSMEs. You need to put your old Udyam number, and again a OTP will be generated. And depending on how this system transition, you will get an updated new number in your email.
Will the benefit of MSME be lost if a MSME unit is getting amalgamated with a non-MSME company? In a case, the MSME unit has already availed some benefits and also in the process of taking some of its advantage.
Yeah, so if at all a small company is getting merged into a big company, yes, this sort of registration is qua the entity. So if the larger entity doesn't have an MSME registration, then this particular benefit will not be available. On already initiated claims or already intaken benefits, those will continue. Because typically when you would be doing an amalgamation or a scheme of arrangement, there would be clauses to say that whatever has been done in the past, that would continue under the new transferee company. So to that extent, it can also be a clause under the scheme that these MSME benefits would continue qua that small undertaking of that is now merged. But whatever you have done in the past will continue. Going forward, you will not get any new benefits.
Whether the references can be made to MSME Samadhan even for receivables more than 3 years also, because generally after 3 years the Limitation Act comes into place, no right to further recovery. Please enlighten.
The good part in Samadhan is that the law of limitation does not apply. So even if it is an old receivable, you have flexibility to go to the Samadhan portal and do your filing. It's a specific exclusion because it is notwithstanding anything stated anywhere under any other law. The law of limitation also doesn't apply to a Samadhan proceeding.
What happens if a company, say, or an organization registers today and has claims prior to that date? Can that also be put under the basket for making a claim?
Yes, that is precisely what happened in this Ramki infrastructure claim, where when the goods were supplied, he was not registered, but then he took registration and applied for Samadhan Facilitation Center, and the courts allowed that it is possible to do that.
Has the equity infusion scheme started?
Yes, it has started through SIDBI, and SIDBI now has an online portal on which one can upload, and SIDBI will then pass on the leads to the various funds where the 50,000 crore is going to be invested, and they will shortlist on the merits of the proposal.
Is it mandatory to collect the interest if there is a delay in payment, or it is at the discretion of the receiving MSME?
So as a MSME, you can always forego and say that I don't want, but there is no discretion available to the client or the customer. They have to pay irrespective of whatever credit period they've agreed with the MSME. But if you choose not to exercise your right, then it's always okay.
Is the construction company entitled to credit guarantee scheme for MSME scheme of SIDBI?
Yeah, so this construction companies can apply for MSME registration. This credit guarantee scheme has a cap in terms of how much can be availed, and one would need to see whether you fall under the user industries that allow credit guarantee scheme. Every scheme has certain qualifications, and if you fall within that, you can do. SIDBI schemes are certainly available for construction companies as well.
Yeah, Abhishek, if you can add questions.
Yes. So the next question is it from 1/4/2021 that GST registration is compulsory for MSME registration?
That is correct.
Can the turnover be manufacturing and service?
Yes, turnover can be both manufacturing and service.
CM Malika has asked, if there is no investment in assets or it is below 1 lakh, no turnover in the previous year, whether such enterprises will still be eligible for MSME registration?
Yes, you can register even with a zero turnover and zero asset. No problem in that.
CA Veena Kunte, same Aadhaar has different proprietorship firms with different kind of businesses. Then how different enterprises under the same Aadhaar can be registered?
One Aadhaar, one number. Earlier, under the Udyog registration, it was possible to have multiple registrations under the same Aadhaar, but under this new Udyam registration, it is one number per Aadhaar.
See, Amrita, if the MSME entity has not received the payment for a period for more than 100 days and the customer is in talks for merger or change in management, how does the MSME secure its payment due to it?
So as far as the MSME is concerned, it has dealt with a particular corporate. Irrespective of change in control or merger, your claim against that company remains. Even if it is change in control, the company survives. It's just that the shareholders have changed and your claim will survive. Even in a merger situation, whatever are the liabilities of the transferor company, those are inherited by the transferee company. So you would also get benefit of recovering post that. But you don't have to worry. For you, your invoice to your customer is the only proof, and that can entitle you to your recoveries.
CA Bhaskar has asked, can the details in MSME registration be altered in the Udyam registration in terms of investment values?
So if you already have a registration, you will first have to upgrade it. And at the time of upgradation, there is no such functionality. But going forward, you can always either upgrade or downgrade. Once you get your Udyam registration, you can true up or true down, depending on what your actual turnover and investment is.
CA Varun, what will the MSME classification be if the entity has a service export turnover of 100 crores and no domestic turnover and the investment is less than rupees 1 crore?
So you will be a micro enterprise.
What are the advantages of a CA firm being registered as MSME?
Yeah, all of these advantages are available to you as a CFO.
Do we need to apply specifically for interest subvention scheme, or the banker or SIDBI will apply automatically?
No, you will have to. You can take the horse to the water, but not make it drink. So you'll have to stretch yourself a bit to make sure that you make the application, and then also pursue a bit, because though it is digital, there is a requirement to have grit and pursue some of these schemes. But ultimately, you'll have results.
The last question is from CA Radha Haridas. Is it possible to add a few more HSN codes for existing MSME registrations under the Udyam registration process?
Yes, you can add multiple NIC codes to that registration if you have multiple products. As long as you don't do in that wholesale trading and wholesale retail, you can add different NIC codes to your registration.
Anand, I think we've got a couple of more questions. Is it okay if we take those also?
I am okay.
What are the consequences of not intimating the upgrade or downgrade of the status?
Earlier, there was no problem under the Udyog registration, which was there. But now under this July notification, they have brought in specific provisions that if at all the declaration of investment and turnover is not correct, then there is an appropriate penalty that they can levy. All of those things are now started from the July 2020 notification. But earlier, there was never a concern because it was more beneficial. Now one needs to be more careful with penalty clause coming in.
CA Subramanya, but if the goods received on 1st June, is there any penalty for trading firm registered in MSME?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Abhishek?
Is there any penalty for a trading firm that has registered in the MSME?
Yeah, now there is this penalty clause that if you are not eligible or if you have wrong turnover, wrong investment, then the authority has the right to penalize you. The mechanics, etc., are not there, but they have now started looking at it more seriously, which earlier was like a self-declaration.
I think we'll take this as the last question, Anand, because repeatedly questions are coming every second, and I know you've had a very long day. So I'm going to take this as the last question. Shekran has asked, if such MSME gets registered under Startup India, will it be eligible for the benefits under that scheme in addition to the MSME benefits?
That is correct. You can take benefit of the MSME as well as Startup India and enjoy both the benefits.
So I think with that, we have come to the end of the questions.
Thank you so much. I think it is 60, 70 questions you have taken. Highest any session which we have conducted in the last 2 months. Thank you so much. Yeah, before I request Sundarajan sir to speak and Abhishek Murli to give, Anand, you want to take things?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Anand, sir, thanks for your nice guidance. And with regard to the recovery of debts, I thought I can share my experience, because one of my client who was MSME got his money from the bigger party. He is a bigger party, and he has paid this money just because we preferred the complaint. Otherwise, and even when I preferred the complaint, he said the other party had made an application to that MSME saying that it is out of court settled, and they have filed an affidavit to the MSME. And finally, when I told them that you don't accept it, otherwise if you will not be given any money, we've sent a mail to that portal saying that this is the money which is due and it is not settled as on date. This mail was sent to the my MSME portal, and automatically the complaint was again taken, and the client of that particular party was called, and he settled it, though not fully. The interest he has not paid it fully. Maybe for a settlement of about we claimed about 65 lakhs, they settled at around 48-50 lakhs, and the balance being only interest. So the client also was happy, so they settled it. But otherwise, this party would have lost that money.
Yeah.
The other party is a bigger concern.
Sure. Absolutely, sir. I think
So definitely this MSME concept of delayed payments, which has been made mandatory, is definitely useful to all the customers of us, including us.
Yeah, I think, sir, just one point. There are over the last 1 year, two things. One is the insolvency and bankruptcy code, wherein even a 1 lakh rupee invoice, you could have taken a large company into insolvency. And second was the MSME, where it go to these facility centers and do. Insolvency threshold is now increased to 1 crore. So there is a little bit of hindrance in terms of your claim being more than 1 crore. But this MSME portal is available, it's working fine. I think what has started, we should maybe make sure that we don't use this portal so that it gets bad marks. Sometimes we have also see that there is some billing or something that happens. We should make sure that invoices are taken and we pull that whole mechanism. If you are able to do that, I think it's a win-win for MSME.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Anand. Thank you so much for your time. And we had kind of, troubled you with a back-to-back session one before this, but we had an excellent time where you kind of clarified all the queries which our members are.
My pleasure, BCG, and always a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone for attending. Thank you very much.
Yeah, in fact, we had 450 plus registrations, and 400 plus are still live.
Great.
Yeah, vote of thanks and
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aman. Thank you so much, Anandji. Really wonderful and thorough presentation. I think the way you gave clarity in your answers and such brief answers, enough to just crisp it was, that's the sort of response I think our members really want. And you've given us serious value addition today in areas where most chartered accountants fear to venture. We know the policies, we don't know how it's implemented. I think the clarity you gave was truly amazing. So definitely hats off to you. Thank you so much, Anand, despite your hectic schedule, to spend these 2 hours with us and give us great guidance. Without further ado, I'm just going to quickly make some announcements. We've lined up many interesting programs going forward. On 25th of July, this Saturday, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., that is tomorrow, I have a program on GST, interplay of other laws and doctrine of retrospective legislation. We have Advocate Sujit Ghosh, very leading and most sought after advocate for GST, joining us from New Delhi. That is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Request everybody to please join. On 27th to 31st of July, we have the insolvency. And then on 1st of August at 11 a.m., that is next week Saturday, we have a 3-day refresher course starting then on tax audit, because tax audit is, the time is almost here. So we have Dr. Vinod Singhania will be taking a session on ICDS on next week Saturday. On Sunday, next week Sunday at 2nd August, tax audit perspective covering audit documentation, we have CA Gururaj Acharya from Bangalore. And then on 4th of August, that is Tuesday, we have CA Pramod Jain, a Central Council member, who will be taking us through practical aspects in tax audit. So very important sessions, and we've got the most leading speakers from across India who will be taking this 3-day session on tax audit. So it's a 3-day refresher course. Request you all to please register. Then on 6th and 7th of August, we have a 2-day refresher course on tax audit and technology financial automation, where CA Vijay Aggarwal and CA Sharan Kumar from Hyderabad will be taking 2 sessions. That's on 6th and 7th of August. Of course, we have more programs also lined up. We'll be announcing the same going forward. So for this, looking forward to seeing you all join tomorrow for our program on GST at 11 a.m. Thank you all. Take care. Stay home, stay safe, and thank you, Anandji.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek. Take care.
Thank you, Anand.